Lawyer warns. Police ask, "Why are you here?" Know your rights before you answer. Imagine this. You're driving home after work. Your music is playing, everything seems normal. Then suddenly, red and blue lights flash behind your car. You pull over. The officer walks up to your window. Instead of immediately asking for your license, he looks at you and asks, "Why are you here?" Seems like an innocent question, but according to many criminal defense attorneys, your answer can affect what happens next. In today's video, we're going to explain why police ask this question, what your constitutional rights are, what you should never say, and how to protect yourself during any police encounter in the United States. This video is for educational purposes only and is not legal advice. Laws vary by state, so if you're facing a real legal issue, consult a licensed attorney. Let's begin. Why police ask this question? Most people think police already know why they stop them. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Police officers often ask open-ended questions because they're trying to gather information. Questions like, "Where are you going? Where are you coming from? What brings you here? Who are you meeting?" These questions encourage people to talk, and the more someone talks, the more information the officer receives. Sometimes people accidentally admit something they didn't realize was important. Sometimes nervous people contradict themselves. Sometimes innocent people simply say too much. Remember, anything you voluntarily tell police may become part of the investigation. That's why lawyers often remind people to stay calm and think carefully before answering questions. The biggest mistake people make. When people get nervous, they often believe they must explain everything. So they begin talking. "I was just coming from my friend's house. I had one drink. I wasn't speeding. I only looked at my phone for a second." Without realizing it, they're providing information the officer never asked for. Many defense attorneys recommend answering required requests truthfully while avoiding unnecessary volunteering of information. Speaking more doesn't always help. Sometimes it creates confusion. What are you legally required to do? This is where many people become confused. During a lawful traffic stop, officers may generally request documents such as driver's license, vehicle registration, proof of insurance. If required by law, you should provide these documents. Beyond that, whether you must answer additional questions depends on the circumstances and applicable law. For example, an officer may ask, "Where are you headed?" You may choose to answer briefly, or you may politely decline to answer if the law allows. Never become argumentative. Never become aggressive. A calm attitude usually helps the interaction remain professional. Why lawyers say, less is more. Imagine two drivers. Driver number one answers every question. He keeps talking. He changes his story several times because he's nervous. Driver number two remains polite, provides required identification, answers only what is legally necessary, doesn't volunteer extra information. Which conversation is likely to stay shorter? Experienced attorneys often say, the less unnecessary information you provide, the fewer chances there are for misunderstandings. Remaining respectful doesn't mean giving up your rights, and exercising your rights doesn't require being disrespectful. What if police ask, "So, why are you here tonight?" Instead of panicking, stay calm. You can politely respond, "Officer, I'd prefer not to answer any questions," or "I'd like to remain silent." If you decide to answer, keep it short. Avoid long explanations. Avoid guessing. Avoid making assumptions. And above all, never lie. Giving false information to law enforcement can create serious legal problems. Can police search your car? Now let's move to one of the most misunderstood situations during a police stop. Imagine the officer asks, "Do you mind if I take a quick look inside your vehicle?" At first, that sounds harmless. Many people think, if I have nothing to hide, why not? But experienced criminal defense attorneys often recommend understanding the difference between consenting to a search and a search conducted under legal authority. If an officer asks for your permission, one respectful response is, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Notice what that response does. It doesn't argue. It doesn't accuse the officer. It doesn't interfere. It simply makes it clear that you are not voluntarily giving permission. If the officer has an independent legal basis to search, they may still do so. But refusing consent peacefully is different from physically resisting. Never block an officer. Never grab evidence. Never become confrontational. If you believe the search was unlawful, let your attorney challenge it later in court. The roadside is not the place to argue legal issues. Should you answer every question? After checking your documents, the officer may continue asking questions like, "Where are you coming from? Have you been drinking tonight? Whose car is this? Do you have anything illegal inside?" Many people panic. They start talking faster. They give long stories. They change details because they're nervous. That nervousness can sometimes make an innocent person appear suspicious. A better approach is to stay calm. Speak clearly. If you choose to answer, keep your answers truthful and brief. If you decide not to answer additional questions, do so politely. Remember, being respectful and exercising your rights can happen at the same time. The right to remain silent. One of the most well-known constitutional protections in the United States is the right to remain silent. But many people misunderstand how to use it. Simply staying quiet without saying anything may create confusion. If you want to rely on that right, many attorneys recommend clearly stating something like, "I am exercising my right to remain silent," or, "I would like to speak with an attorney before answering questions." After saying that, avoid continuing the conversation about the investigation. If you keep talking after saying you want to remain silent, your later statements may still become part of the investigation. Don't try to talk your way out. People often believe they can explain everything. "I only had one drink. I was speeding because I'm late. I forgot that was in my backpack." Unfortunately, statements like these can sometimes create more problems than they solve. Police officers are trained to gather information. Even casual conversations may later become evidence. That doesn't mean officers are trying to trick everyone. It simply means their job is to investigate facts. Your job is to stay calm and make thoughtful decisions. Can police search your phone? Here's another question people ask all the time. Can police simply take your phone and search everything inside it? Modern smartphones contain an enormous amount of personal information: photos, messages, emails, banking apps, and location history. Whether officers may search a phone depends on the circumstances and applicable law. In many situations, a warrant or another recognized legal exception may be required before searching the contents of a phone. If an officer asks for permission, you can respectfully say, "I do not consent to a search of my phone." Never physically prevent an officer from taking action. If you believe your rights were violated, discuss the situation with an attorney afterward. #Stay calm. Your behavior matters. Police encounters can be stressful. Even innocent people become nervous. That's normal. But your behavior can influence how the interaction unfolds. If you're stopped, keep your hands where the officer can see them. Avoid sudden movements. Follow lawful instructions. Speak respectfully. Don't interrupt or argue. Don't make jokes about weapons or illegal items. If you need to reach for your wallet or registration, tell the officer first. Simple actions like these can help reduce tension and improve communication. A realistic example. Imagine you're driving home late at night. An officer stops your vehicle because one of your tail lights is out. After checking your license, the officer asks, "Mind if I search your car?" You calmly respond, "Officer, I don't consent to any searches." The officer then asks, "Why not? If you have nothing to hide, it shouldn't matter." Instead of arguing, you simply repeat, "I respectfully don't consent to any searches." You remain calm. You don't raise your voice. You don't interfere. You don't resist. Whether the search happens or not will depend on the facts and the law, not on an argument at the roadside. Remaining respectful throughout the encounter helps protect both your safety and your legal position. What happens if you're detained or arrested? When should you ask for a lawyer? Common police interview tactics. Mistakes that innocent people often make. Final safety and legal tips everyone should know. What if you're detained? Let's say the situation changes. The officer tells you, you're not free to leave. At that moment, you are being detained. A detention is different from an arrest. It generally means officers are temporarily keeping you at the scene while they investigate. This is not the time to argue. It's not the time to pull away. And it's definitely not the time to run. Stay calm. Keep your hands visible. Follow lawful instructions. If you're unsure whether you're free to leave, you can politely ask, "Officer, am I free to leave?" If the answer is yes, calmly leave the area. If the answer is no, remain calm and avoid escalating the situation. What if you're arrested? If the officer says, "You're under arrest," take a deep breath and stay composed. Many people panic at this point. Some try to explain everything. Others argue or physically resist. Those reactions can make a difficult situation even worse. Instead, do not resist. Do not argue. Do not threaten the officer. Do not attempt to flee. Even if you believe the arrest is unfair, the roadside is usually not the place to fight that battle. Your opportunity to challenge the arrest comes later through the legal process. When should you ask for a lawyer? One of the smartest decisions a person can make during a criminal investigation is knowing when to stop talking. If officers begin asking questions about a possible crime, many defense attorneys recommend clearly saying, "I want to speak with an attorney before answering any questions." That's a simple, respectful statement. Once you've asked for an attorney, avoid discussing the case with officers or anyone else until you've received legal advice. Remember, conversations in police vehicles, holding areas, or jail facilities may be recorded. Even casual remarks like, "I didn't mean to," "It was only once," "I wasn't thinking," could potentially become evidence. If you've decided to remain silent and request a lawyer, it's generally best to stick with that decision. # police interview tactics. Police officers are trained to ask questions in different ways to gather information. For example, an officer might say, "Help me understand what happened," or "This is your chance to explain your side." Sometimes officers may already have evidence. Sometimes they're still trying to figure out what happened. The important thing to remember is this: you don't have to guess what they know. Trying to explain away facts or filling in gaps with assumptions can create inconsistencies. If you don't know the answer to something, don't guess. If you've chosen to remain silent, continue doing so respectfully. Mistakes innocent people often make. Many people believe only guilty individuals need lawyers. That's simply not true. Innocent people sometimes make mistakes because they're scared. Some common examples include talking too much because they're nervous, guessing instead of saying they don't know, agreeing with statements they don't fully understand, signing documents without reading them carefully, believing they must answer every question. Stress affects memory. When people are frightened, they may accidentally give inconsistent details, even though they're telling the truth. That's one reason legal professionals often encourage people to stay calm and think before speaking. Remain respectful. No matter how stressful the encounter becomes, keep your emotions under control. Avoid yelling, avoid insults, avoid sudden movements. Treat officers respectfully, even if you disagree with what's happening. Remaining respectful doesn't mean giving up your rights. It simply helps reduce the risk of the situation becoming more tense. Professional communication often leads to a safer interaction for everyone involved. A real-life style scenario. Imagine an officer believes someone matching your description was involved in a nearby incident. You're stopped and questioned. The officer asks several detailed questions. Instead of trying to convince the officer with a long explanation, you remain calm. You identify yourself if legally required. You answer required requests truthfully. When questioning turns toward a possible criminal investigation, you politely state, I would like to speak with an attorney before answering additional questions. You don't argue, you don't resist, you simply exercise your rights respectfully. That approach helps avoid unnecessary misunderstandings while allowing the legal process to move forward appropriately. With a strong call to action. If I'm innocent, I have to answer everything. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is believing that innocent people should answer every single question asked by police. The truth is more nuanced. Being innocent does not automatically mean you should volunteer every detail of your day. People forget things. People become nervous. People accidentally misspeak. A small mistake can create unnecessary confusion during an investigation. That's why many attorneys recommend thinking carefully before answering questions and understanding your legal rights. This is another common misconception. Requesting an attorney is a constitutional right. Lawyers don't just represent guilty people. They also protect innocent people from misunderstandings, ensure legal procedures are followed, and provide advice during stressful situations. Choosing to speak with an attorney should never be viewed as an admission of guilt. Biggest myth number 3. If I say no to a search, I'll get in trouble. Many people fear that politely refusing consent to a search will automatically make them look guilty. In reality, respectfully declining consent is different from resisting an officer. You can calmly say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." If officers have independent legal authority to search, they may still proceed. The important point is to remain respectful and never interfere physically. After the police stop. Eventually, most traffic stops come to an end. Once you're free to leave, drive away safely. If you believe something improper happened during the stop, avoid confronting the officer afterward. Instead, write down what you remember as soon as possible. Details such as the date and time, the location, the patrol car number if visible, the officer's name or badge number if known, the sequence of events. These notes may be helpful later if you choose to consult an attorney. If you receive a ticket. Receiving a citation doesn't automatically mean you've lost your case. Read the ticket carefully. Pay attention to any court dates or deadlines. If you plan to challenge the citation, missing a deadline could affect your options. When in doubt, consult a qualified attorney licensed in your state. Final lawyer-inspired tips. Before we finish, here are a few simple reminders that can make any police encounter safer and more professional. Stay calm, even if you're nervous. Keep your hands where officers can see them. Follow lawful instructions. Don't argue on the roadside. Never provide false information. He understands the difference between complying with lawful orders and voluntarily providing extra information. If you choose to exercise your rights, do so politely and respectfully. If you're facing a serious legal matter, seek advice from a licensed attorney. Knowledge, preparation, and respectful communication are often your best tools during any police encounter. Final disclaimer. This video is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It is not legal advice. Laws and procedures vary across the United States, and every situation is different. If you're involved in a real legal matter, consult a qualified attorney in your jurisdiction for advice specific to your circumstances. Most police encounters end without major problems. Knowing your rights, staying calm, and treating others with respect can help make those interactions safer and more productive. The goal isn't to win an argument on the side of the road. The goal is to protect your rights, avoid unnecessary conflict, and handle the situation responsibly. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss future videos about legal rights, law enforcement, and practical safety tips. Question for today's video. Have you ever been stopped by the police? What advice would you give someone during a traffic stop? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, stay informed, stay respectful, and we'll see you in the next video.